Good evening, TDP cohort. In this video, we're going to talk about unpacking the standards for an assessment and then scaling the expectations. This is where we left off last time. We talked about how you use the statement of inquiry and the criteria and standards in order to come up with a description of what you want to do for your summative assessment. But you also have to pick a product for your assessment. What are the students actually going to do? What are they going to hand to you or present to you at the end of the learning cycle in order to demonstrate their learning? Say, for instance, that we want to involve this standard in our assessment. This is one of what's called the next generation science standards for elementary schools. It reads, adaptation by natural selection, acting over generations, is one important process by which species change over time in response to changes in environmental conditions. So what would students actually do in order to show you that they understand this concept? There's a lot of things that they could do. They could write an essay, they could give a speech, they could create a poster, they could write a story. There's about a million other ideas that they could do. And which of those ideas you choose has to do with what else you want students to learn in the process. So on one hand, I want students to understand adaptation as a concept. But I also know that my students need practice in other skills. If my students need practice writing nonfiction paragraphs, I'm going to have them write a paragraph about adaptation. But maybe they don't need that. Maybe I really want my students to work on how to speak in front of people, in which case I'm going to have them give a speech on adaptation. Or maybe I think that students really need to focus in on being able to visually picture the way adaptation looks in nature, in which case I'll have them create a poster about adaptation. The process of picking a product can be a little bit overwhelming, especially if you don't have a lot of classroom experience. You're going to be exposed to a lot of great products over the course of your career, and you're going to pick those up as you go. But when you're first starting out, it's difficult to just create one out of thin air that's really creative and engaging for students. This list will give you a little bit of a foundation. You'll still have to do some Google searches around what some of these things mean, but it at least gives you a leg up. Beyond that, you need to talk to other teachers about what they do in their classroom. Grab creative ideas from other educators around you. And Pinterest is always a great resource also. Once you have the product picked, you need to unpack the standards that you're going to be assessing within the product. So say that I've settled on students creating a poster in order to show their understanding of this standard. But what are students actually going to do in the poster? What type of information does the poster need to reflect? Well, that's going to be derived from the standard itself. If I read the standard closely, it tells me everything that students need to do in the poster. The poster needs to reflect natural selection acting over generations. I'm going to have students do this by creating a timeline. Students also have to show the process of natural selection, which means they're going to have to create pictures at various stages of the process of adaptation. This process is going to have to be related to a species. So students are going to have to do this with just a single animal over time. And the poster needs to involve environmental conditions. So I'm going to have students add pictures of the environmental stages as well as the animal over time. And that makes up the content of what needs to be in the poster. I know everything that students need to do on the poster in order to reflect knowledge and understanding of the standard. Now what I need to do is scale the expectations for the poster. Scaling means that I'm going to describe what the poster looks like, or what the different elements of the standard look like at different levels of success. I want to think of student success at 4 stages. Students are either developing, emerging, practicing, or mastering a skill. There are other ways to conceptualize the way that this works. In MYP, we use a number scale. 1, 2 is considered in the developing bracket, 3 or 4 is considered emerging, 5 or 6 considered practicing, and a score of 7 or 8 is considered mastery. So now what I want to do is I want to take all of those expectations on the left and describe what they would look like in each of these individual levels of performance. So I'm going to create a table to do that in. And you'll see I went ahead and folded 2 of those expectations together. The idea that students have to provide pictures and that those pictures need to be of a single animal. What I don't want to do is start by describing what students do at the developing level. I actually want to describe what students are going to do at the mastering level first. That's because I want to start at the point at which students are doing their very best work. What does true mastery of this standard look like? Go ahead and pause the video and look at each one of the descriptors for each one of these skills. Pay close attention to the qualitative words that are used. Things like neat and organized, in several places, accurately, high quality, obvious, clearly, and neatly. All of those words help qualify the level at which I expect students to be able to do those things. Once I know what it looks like when students are mastering each one of these things, I can work my way down the expectation ladder. I do this mostly by changing the qualitative words. Things go from being neat and organized and easy to read to being mostly organized. Things go from vocabulary being used in several places to vocabulary being used in some places. And certain elements go from being accurately identified to being identified with some accuracy. From there, I'm just going to work my way down until I get all of the different levels articulated for each one of these skills. And that's it. This scale table is going to act as my rubric for success. I'm going to give this table to students, and I'm also going to refer to this table when I'm planning my lessons. And I'm going to think about what I need to do in the classroom in order to get students to the level that I want them to be on according to this rubric. So this is the big takeaway from this module. Unpack and scale the standards or criteria so that the expectation and levels are clear. This is vital to both helping students understand what the expectations are for their performance, and it's vital to you in that it helps you target your instruction and your lessons. That's all I've got for this lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please start thinking about what questions you can possibly derive out of this lesson, and we'll start with that on Thursday. I'll see you then.